Thanks for joining us on Coast to Coast Pest Talk.
So for today, I wanted to talk about Pest Patrol, specifically origin story.
Okay.
I wanted to hear about your beginnings, and then I have prepared, I think, 6 of the most difficult questions about your origin story you're ever going to hear. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
No, you'll be able to answer them. It'll be okay. You up for
This
it?
is like, no, this will be great because, it's like the last podcast we did, we were talking about that being an important part. And I think I haven't done a good job of implementing that in my company culture yet. So I think this will be helpful in
Cool.
even just like, even I took, a half an hour before this and was just planning out, like where'd we come from? And it's like, yeah, this could be a really good thing to have for,
Yeah.
the rest of the company to know about and to have on hand more. So yeah, I'm looking
Sure.
forward to it.
Okay, let's jump right into it then and hear about where you came from, man. Where did you get started? How did things get going for you?
Yeah. So how far back are we going?
I mean, you could start at birth if you want. I mean, we're as far
Yeah.
back as you want.
I was born.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've lived over like Portland area my whole life, basically. I was homeschooled until 6th grade, which was awesome.
Is
And
that sarcastic awesome, or are you serious?
no, it was actually awesome.
Yeah.
I homeschool all of my 5 kids, so
Okay.
and then went to public school, did music. Music was my big thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so both my parents are very musical and all my grandparents, that's what I wanted to do was go be a music major, go play in symphonies, etc. Did that all through high school. Ended up being like a multiple time state champion in percussion stuff for Oregon. And then started going to college for that. So that was like I'm set, you
Okay.
know. And then I went one quarter into my first year of college, and I realized that I wanted to get married to my wife. My father-in-law was like, "Yeah, you can get married to her if you have a job."
Uh-oh.
And so I realized quickly that if I wanted to get married and become a professional musician, it was going to be a difficult life to accommodate for a family. And
Yeah.
that hadn't been on my radar at all, you know?
Mhm.
So that was when I launched my first business, which was a mole and gopher trapping company.
So you were still
And
in
that was,
college at the time? You were still.
yeah, so I dropped out. Yeah, I
Oh,
dropped
okay.
out
Okay.
and started this company, which was called Mole Trappers PDX, which is the Portland airport, code.
Okay.
And I was also doing bookkeeping for 2 family businesses, both of them in the oil change field, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So let me ask
and
you, who
yeah,
who taught you how to do mole trapping? Did you just one day say, "I think I'm going to figure out how to do this," or?
my father-in-law. So he had started with his oldest son. He has 8 kids. His oldest son, he had started a mole trapping company like 20 years prior. And it's such a low cost to get in. I started in my Toyota Camry with 5 mole traps that I bought from Home Depot.
So a low
Like
barrier to entry for you.
low barrier to entry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Built the brand, built a truck and wrapped it and built a website and all that, the cool fun stuff that you get to do when you start a business. And I ran that for 5 years. I was just doing the mole trapping business, and then I was doing bookkeeping. And I got to the point where it was like, if I do this another year, I'm gonna have 2 full-time jobs on my hand plus. Like it was just
Right.
both of them were exploding. And so I was thinking, I'm like, I can either do that and keep growing that, but it's super niche, mole trapping, like very
Yeah.
niche. So I was like, maybe I could grow it and have 1 or 2 employees, like after years and years and years. And like it's not that big of an industry. So I basically decided, I got an offer from my father-in-law, and he said, "Hey, I'm running this oil change franchise, which I was doing the bookkeeping for."
Sure.
And he said, I have a CEO. He's a killer. He wants to keep growing the business. He needs director of operations, sort of a COO. He says, if you want it, the job's yours. Um, and which was
Wow.
really cool. Um, and so I was like, that's at that time they had like 45 team members. I was like,
Wow.
that's what I want. I want to see that side of the business
Sure.
world,
Sure.
and get and immerse myself in that, get experience in that. I feel like I've learned, I've kind of gotten up to the 80, 90% of the type of learning things that I need with this small startup world, even though it was really small still. It was like I had already taken the jump and started all these, aspects of it. Um, so yeah, so I sold that business to a buddy.
Okay.
So that business is actually still around, still rolling, and we refer mole jobs to them all the time.
Oh, wow.
Which is funny to refer mole jobs to
Yeah.
your old business.
So is it still just one man? Is it just him, or did he grow that?
No, so he grew it. The guy I sold it
Okay.
to because it was literally on the cusp, and I
Yeah.
felt that. Where I was like, if I run this one more year, I'm going to be working 60 hours a week in it by myself.
Sure.
Um, it- and and that's what happened. He ended up working just crazy hours. He grew the business. He tripled the business in 1 year from where I had it because he
Wow.
just was in it full time.
Yeah.
And then he hired two guys, and then he brought on another guy that co-owned it with him, and he ended up selling it to him.
Okay.
So it's still around. I think they employ four people total right now,
Okay.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Wow. So then you're at the oil change place
yep,
as you said, operations. You were doing
yep,
operations there. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So operations and management. So it was 5 locations, um, in a close proximity, and each store employed about 7 to 10 people,
Okay.
and then they had a manager over each location. And so my job was basically, um, keep operational procedures tight, and then make sure that the manager, morale was kept strong, focused on the same things, pointed the same direction, that type of thing. And then dealing with like warranty claims and all the fun, you know.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
It was
And
a it was an area manager role.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that has got to come to an end at some point. If you got into pest control, how'd you
That's
make
right.
that transition?
Yeah, so um my father-in-law was looking at selling the business right as COVID was hitting.
Okay.
And he and I, we had talked a lot. By that point, I was a part owner, so I was like a 7% owner or something,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
in that, and the CEO was as well. So it's the three of us that basically were running everything. And and so he said, "Hey, I'm considering selling." So at that point, that was mid 2019 when
Okay.
he had that conversation. And so I thought through the industries I wanted to go back into. Um, and I, at that point, created the Pest Patrol brand.
Okay.
Like made the logo, made the name, got the website and stuff, and got all my certifications in terms of operator and applicator licenses here. Um, and just set it on a shelf for like
Oh, wow.
almost a year.
Okay.
Um, didn't ever service any clients, didn't actually open up a business or anything. And then we just got further down the road to selling. We sold to like a massive national brand, Valvoline. So he sold, and then I had enough of a heads up, that I was able to get things in place. We basically sold, and I took 3 weeks off to get my things in order,
Yeah.
and my head in the
Yeah.
right place, and then we jumped in. So that was
Wow.
October 2020.
First pest patrol
Yeah.
service. Tell me what that was.
Yeah, I remember getting the call. So that 3 weeks before we launched the business, we took a trip for like a week, the last week, and we went to the beach as a family because it was a lot of really stressful finishing out that acquisition.
Yeah.
And we were like, we really wanted to clear our heads and get a fresh start. So we went to the beach. And while I was at the beach, I had my SEO team like finishing up the website and ready to launch ads and everything. So like literally we're driving home from the beach and I press the red button and and
The
ads start
launch button.
launching. Yeah.
The launch
And
button. Okay.
so the calls started rolling in while I was driving home from the beach. So I literally remember the first call we got. Um, yeah, the first customer was we can go as in depth or not on this as you want, but rodent trapping account, which was the only thing I was advertising for
Okay.
because that was the only thing I knew how to do. We kind of launched the rodent stuff, and then we launched um, an ant treatment, and we kind of slowly broke out as we learned things,
Yeah.
But so that first year was just nonstop rodents, basically. Yeah, so that was October. I hired my first guy in January of 2021.
Yeah.
So about 3 months in. And that was all of my hires up until now. Up until this most recent one is the first time that I've had like a needed, like we're bursting at the seams, we have to hire somebody,
Mhm.
was this one I just hired 2 weeks ago. All the other ones have been investment hires
Sure.
where I knew I needed to scale past myself. I knew I needed to be able to have more time doing sales, marketing, actually being on the phones and stuff. Um, and that the sooner I got these guys on board and trained and working, the better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. So, um, you ready for your first hard question?
yeah, let's do it.
Takes a big drink. It's water. Just so if you're hearing this, he's drinking water. He takes a big gulp. It's a G-rated sort of podcast here. So, so what I'm interested in is the origin story that you told your first technician is probably different than the origin story you just told your newest hire today in some
Yeah,
ways. How has that evolved? Told you it's
we're
going to be
just going to
hard.
jump into this.
Just jump right
Uh,
in.
no, that's a really good question. So take the context of that first hire was right in the thick of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so a big like the thing on my mind during that whole season of starting a business and then getting to that new hire was um, was uh, watching a city that I love shut down, and then subsequently basically get turned on its head. So it's like COVID happened. We had all of the Black Lives Matters protests, and
Yeah.
those were like home base in Portland,
Yeah.
you know. And so a huge thing on my mind was I have to build a place where people can be safe,
Mm.
where they can come. Um, they don't have to worry um, about their business getting shut down and not having, food for their family.
Hmm.
They don't have to worry about um, I yeah, this could go down a lot of rabbit holes, okay?
Okay.
Um, but like a big thing that was getting pushed at that whole time was all the vaccine mandates and stuff.
Yep.
And so, and I literally watched like dozens of my friends and family lose their jobs over this type of stuff, in all sorts of sectors, in government, military, healthcare, private sectors. And I was like, goodness gracious, like we need businesses that aren't going to be firing people over their medical choices, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and so that was in my mind, like that first hire, that was like one of the main things I'm like, I need to just build something that can help provide for people's families and be safe where they're not fearful. Like they don't have to worry that, um, their religion or their sexual orientation or anything is going to get them fired,
Sure.
right?
Now, was that
Um,
explicit with that first hire? Is that part of like
yeah,
you meet this
and
guy and you're like, hey, it's just you and I, so you're going to spend
yeah,
a lot of time together. Was that
yeah,
explained? Did you were you able
yeah,
to verbalize that at that time?
yeah. So that first hire, he came from my church community,
Okay.
um, and so I knew him. He was working at a cabinet shop
Okay.
making cabinets. Um, and I got together with him and I was like, hey, I'd love to have you work for the company. I laid out kind of the vision I just cast for you, um, and my goal in trying to grow this thing so that there can be a safe place for guys to come and work. And I was thankfully able to match and go a bit above what he was making at the cabinet shop.
Okay.
Um, and the cabinet shop was similar, like really small kind of deal. And so like they didn't have any great benefits that they were offering him either. And there was a lot of workplace drama where he was working.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure unless it's like you and me, like we're not going to have a
Yeah.
whole lot of workplace drama. So
Unless we have to
yeah,
throw down, you
yeah, I'm like,
have a
we can
problem.
do it. Yeah.
So now your newest guy is in a totally different environment when he comes on. Your newest guy, like I dare I say, we're post COVID and we're recovering and we're in a different
Yeah.
place, and you're hiring them
Yeah.
in a different sort of pretense of this isn't just a growth hire. This is a anticipation of growth hire. This is a we need somebody. So now the origin story and what you're about. How did you present it to the newest member?
There was definitely some similarities
Yeah.
still in
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Um, but I don't even know if I don't even know if I really expressed that to our newest guy, to
Okay.
Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it hasn't been as explicit
Yeah.
what you're saying. Yeah. Now you had mentioned like during the COVID, you gave your first hire and you were thinking, I want a place for people to be safe, employment that isn't going to be, upended by who knows what nonsense.
Yeah.
Was that the first time that really occurred to you, or did that go back further into your life as like a reoccurring sort of theme?
No, it not reoccurring. It was really from that COVID stuff.
Wow.
Because that's such a traumatic 12 months or whatever that was. It was just nuts. And I'm thinking, so my most recent hire, he had worked at a small company like mine, and then they got bought,
Okay.
and then he had worked for a mid-size 30 to 50 employee company just prior to mine.
Okay.
And they were um, super uh, nitpicky,
Okay.
micromanaged to the extreme. And so he was just coming out of that. And so a lot of it was, I think, um, I expressed to him like, hey, my goal is that you have a lot of freedom to love the customer, that type of thing. You can actually like choose how you do the services, and you have a lot more freedom here than you did at that previous.
Sure.
But I didn't explicitly
Okay.
have like an origin story that I brought him into.
Sure. Sure. So I guess that is a big difference between the two then.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Okay. And he was in the same industry. He transferred
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the the vision of helping everybody, it really germinated there in that 2020 timeframe. That doesn't pull back further into your life.
Not in that.
Okay.
No, not in
Wow.
that kind of way. No.
Okay. Wow.
I
Okay.
don't think. I mean, maybe.
Maybe we need to get to the leather couch that you can lay down on,
That's
and
right.
we'll start asking about your
I
mother.
got a chair back there,
Yeah, no, perfect, perfect. Okay. So how do you think that the origin story that your first employee has heard affects his actions in like his day-to-day duties versus your newer employees that haven't really heard it yet? Do you think that their day-to-day actions are affected by the difference, the delta in what their knowledge is of the origins and premise of the company?
Probably, but I'm not sure if my origin story from the initial one was all that compelling and great in terms of like
Sure.
uh, this long-term vision. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I told you we were going to ask really hard
This
questions,
is
right?
no, keep them up.
So
Was that question number two, or is that still the number one?
no, that's number two. You're
Okay,
counting them down because I
good.
said there were six, right? So now you're
Okay,
like checking them off. God, I'm only got to get down there. Where's number six?
two for
So
two.
if I could offer something to that,
Offer it. Yeah,
is that your first? I think that for your earliest employees, your origin story pulls way back further than
hmm
the day you hit the red button to launch the the go button for the company. Uh,
yeah,
so for those first, especially those first couple employees that work really closely with you, the origin story of that company starts with the beginnings of Gabe Seymour. You
right.
know, it pulls way back who you really are. And even if it's not explicit, they still get exposed to that because you're
Yeah,
small. And so you're right there. And so then they get to know you. And the less explicit it is, the more intuition they're going to use to determine it. And they're going
yeah,
to go off what they observe. You know, they
yeah,
see how you treat customers and they're going to intuit, oh, that must mean this, that must mean that. I think the more you can be extremely explicit of like, this is why I do that thing, or this is why
yeah.
this is important to us, it creates that identity that's then really shared.
hmm
So you ready for the next hard question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. And actually we kind of answered one of them. We're kind of on number four.
Yes,
We kind of, yeah.
got it.
You're an overachiever. Uh, okay, so I want you to think hypothetically that
Okay.
if your origin story was to be suddenly and dramatically undermined, how do you think that would affect your staff?
Oh, I definitely think that would affect them. Um, yeah, because we're still so small right now that like there's a lot of very individual connection happening every day,
Sure.
with each of the guys. Um, like to some degree for people, it's a job, right? In a unique way that it's not as much for me as the owner. Um, but would I be confident if like some massive character flaw or something came out about me that my team would be like, oh, not that big of a deal, like doesn't really affect us? Like, no, I think that that would probably greatly affect the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now this leads into to the next one, really. So, and you're kind of already answering this. So, really, can you subtract the founder and extricate that founder out of that company without changing, let's say, the underlying social contract between employer and employee?
Yeah, you can. Um, but you you need a placeholder. So I saw it done with my father-in-law. He scaled a business from one employee to 60. And by the time it was 60, he was not running any day-to-day operations, doing zero management. It was the CEO and me. But we were the placeholders. Like we were the people that carried that culture and that vision, and the relationship that the managers had, it was with us. Now they still knew the primary owner, but that was, I mean, he had been out of the picture for the last like 15 years of the company,
Sure.
basically.
Sure.
So I think you can. Um, it's not without its bumps, and you can't have You can't have no placeholder for that, because that's
Yeah.
like saying you could have, you're always going to have a culture. You're always going to have
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that's holding it together with it. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyways.
Sure. Okay. Now that gets me actually to sort of my last one on this. And I had a hypothesis in preparing for this that what I feel like you would need to do, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is that middle management, or if you're to take the founder out of there and you're going to have, managers that run the company or whatever, that they, in the best case scenario, have an origin story that the staff that work under them know and sort of accept. And I think that's why you end up with people being more successful with internal promotions, internal hires into management positions than sort of external, because you don't have, people don't know the origin of this boss guy that's the middle person, the operations manager, a technical director, whatever the case may be. I think every one of those needs to have generated sort of an accepted origin story for the staff and culture to embrace them.
Yeah, and I think you see that in the practical outworkings, like, as people come up and they say like, "Oh, he can't be the manager. He hasn't paid his dues."
Yeah. There you
Right?
go.
It's like
Okay.
that whole that comes across as sometimes kind of like overly kind of pecking order-ish. But I think what they're getting at when they have those gut level reactions, I think it is really what you're saying, that like this person they're not running with the same origin story. They have a different DNA,
Yeah. Sure.
cultural DNA than we do. And it may be a good DNA, but
Yeah.
it's just different. And so it's hard for people. They want things to grow from the same origin, the same
Yeah.
seed.
Yeah. So now then that makes me think then there's implications that would make it easier to put somebody into that middle management position that maybe, because we don't think of it this way, we miss. So like you're saying, when people say haven't paid their dues, I think that's a great way, because you hear that all the time. Haven't paid their dues, haven't paid their dues. Well, okay, who am I paying these dues to? Can I
Right.
just pay
Yeah.
dues and then I'm in? I think
Yeah.
if you, and this is again a hypothesis, if you have a person that's going to be in middle management, either coming up the ranks internally or especially coming externally, I think if they come in with understanding, hey, I need to explicitly state my origin story to the people that I'm going to be working with, so they know who I am, what I'm about, how I perceive things. And I gotta imagine you'll have a much better buy-in, where people, if they can put together a coherent narrative of that person and how they found their way to where they are right now, people will rally behind that much better than, well, I'm in charge now, you're going to listen to me. Do what I say. I'm the new boss. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would imagine
Yeah.
even with, if you came here and we're going to be like, okay, Gabe, you're going to be operations manager for us, or I'm going to go to you and I'm going to be an operations manager for you. I think the first thing that we would do, where we should do, is tell our story. How did I
Yes.
get to here? Why am I here? What do I see in the future? And I think that relaxes people, not relaxes them like it's like a sedative, but like their mind wraps around like, okay, this person can be here. We'll let them in to the little tribe here.
Yeah. And I think recognizing that the difficult part with what you're saying is, even if somebody comes in and their origin, the question then becomes, if they didn't come up organically through the system, it becomes, okay, so is this guy going to submit to the system, or are we all changing to him?
Right.
Is our DNA going to look more like his and include his origin story, or is he going to become like us? And that's the tricky balance. And I don't think it always has to be clean cut, but
Sure. So that is all my hard questions. That wasn't so bad.
That wasn't terrible.
wasn't terrible. Okay.
I feel like I got about, maybe 2 or 3 of them like decently, and then probably failed the other
that's all
3 to
right.
4. So
That's all right. I was thinking it's designed to make you think, right? Like,
that's fantastic.
cool.
Yeah, I need to get the origin story more solidified within my company culture for sure.
Sure. Well, now you got something to do for the week. There you go. All right, Gabe,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. That was great.